Good morning, fellow anti-novelists, Lilligans, and friends. It is a blustery, stormy day on the ranch, so I am hunkered down in the library like I am wont to do. And I'm going to answer a question. So this came up in response to my last video where I was talking with y'all about research-driven writing. And the reason I wanted to answer this now is because Emily made a really good observation, which, by the way, thank you, Emily. This is your second question, and I so appreciate you. Her question was, I understand the research part, but how do you take that and make that into part of the story? Like, what does that look like? Here's your answer. I'm going to walk you through my cards, show you a few things, and then I'm going to read you, because you are my special guest and you get special treats. I'm going to read you a little bit from the finished chapter of the novel that uses this information so you can actually see it in practice. So here we go. The first cards that I pulled my Nelson Atkins card, which I talked about last time, that has the museum hours, a little bit about the Roselle Court, and so forth. I pulled my Nelson Atkins Roselle Court card, 7110.6/1, right? Because it goes behind the main Nelson card. It says Nelson Atkins Roselle Court Fountain Basin. In 1933, they opened the Roselle Court as a cafe for patrons at the museum. The Fountain Basin center bowl is carved from one piece of Cipollano marble and weighs about 4 tons. The white-to-white architects designed both the museum and the pedestal, having 4 lion paws for the base of the bowl. It's super cool. So then it's got 12 zodiac signs encircling the fountain and a medallion around it on the floor. So that centers you in the Roselle Court next to the fountain basin. The next thing I pulled a little map that I drew. Remember when I said sometimes you need to know where your characters are going in space? Well, I've just sketched out the museum is here. The shuttlecocks are there, and I've pulled my Nelson Atkins shuttlecocks card, my master card, just as a reminder of where those are on the lawn, and I'll show you what that looks like because it is crazy. And then I just made a quick note about the cross streets, and you might recall from my plaza card that I had made a note that it's a 13-minute walk from the Nelson Atkins Museum across Oak Street over to where the horse fountains are, and then on over to Tara's ultimate destination, which is Florals and Floss, which is a shop on Wyandotte Street. So this is just a quick cheat sheet so that I can recall the path that she takes when she takes that walk in the morning. Then I have my card about the horse fountains. I make a note to myself, setting for a walk perhaps, right? Because I already know how long that walk takes. I know that Tara doesn't drive. She lives on the plaza because she likes to walk everywhere. And I've made a note, phobia. Recall equals intro the reader to the past, parentheses, wound. Okay, so that's how I've set up the direction that those story elements are going to go. So, are you ready for some story time? Let's rock it. The first little bit that I will read is Tara calling her best friend Chad about meeting him at the cafe in the museum. It's a phone call. Chad answered on the 3rd ring. Yellow. Hi, Chad. Have you had breakfast? Tara tugged on her jacket sleeves. Negatory. You? Nope. Want to meet at the Roselle Court Cafe at the museum? The tables by the fountain basin? Tara blurted out the invitation before she lost her nerve. Sounds good. I can be there in 30 minutes. See ya. Tara hung up and looked in the mirror one last time. The fatigue hung on her face like a wet sack. It would take a week of sleep to recover from tossing and turning before finally bailing out of sleep to search for everything Voynich on the internet. It had been a very deep rabbit hole. Coffee, followed by eggs, sounded like heaven. Okay, so even though I only make one mention to the Roselle Court and the fact that they're sitting by the basin, it helps orient me in space. So let me just grab my little phone and show you. This, my friends, is the Roselle Court. Pretty cool. I'm going to go ahead and show you a couple of other things before I read the next excerpt. These are the shuttlecocks. So there's the museum in the background, the shuttlecocks that are scattered willy-nilly across the lawn, which is just ridiculous. Branch, my main character, makes reference to this later when he's driving by. There is a quick look at the horse fountains. You're about to get that excerpt and how this plays in. See that building in the background in the center? That is Tara's apartment building. So she's actually situated herself across from where these horse fountains are. That becomes significant, right? Face your fears. No spoilers there. And this is a nighttime view of the fountains. They really are quite stunning. So I'm just going to leave you here looking at the fountains, and I'm going to read you the next little section. So you know all the ingredients. Here is what was baked out of them. Tara's footsteps quickened to a brisk pace, not sure if she was escaping the museum, the book, or herself. She rushed down the expanse of the south lawn, past the shuttlecocks, through the long block of old walnut trees that lined Oak Street, and crossed the intersection toward the plaza before she finally forced herself to slow down. She approached the J.C. Nichols Memorial Fountain, whose waters wouldn't spring to life for another month to honor the traditional turn-up in April. But even dry, the 4 life-size bronze horses rearing up furiously from the fountain base were a stunning sight. Tara paced a wide arc around the fountain wall to keep at the maximum distance. Her heart started to pound as the beasts stalked her with their eyes. The violence and aggression made her feel sick as she tried to pass quickly by before they could buck their riders and lurch at her. Okay, so are you getting a feeling of some real terror there? Are you getting a feeling of how she's positioned herself so she walks a wide arc around the fountain, but you're in her head feeling that panic as it wells up? Let's finish with the next little paragraph. Tara distracted herself with the history behind the fountain. Each horse represented one of the mightiest rivers in the world: the Rhine, the Volga, the Seine, and the Mississippi. She stopped just short of the Mississippi rider who was fending off an alligator. And then shot a glance at the Volga River horsemen battling a bear. They'd only been restored in 2015, yet they already had the patina of age and dirt. She was sure they could spring to life at any moment. She felt dizzy as her stomach flipped with nerves looking at their hooves. She was no friend to horses. With cars bustling by and tourists snapping photos, it could be called just an ordinary day. Tara choked back an anxious laugh at the thought and started walking west to leave the writhing beast behind her. As she crossed the parkway, Tara recalled the first City of Fountains installations dated back to the late 1800s when they were erected so horses, dogs, and locals could drink clean water. Her mind flashed back to confessing her bizarre encounter with that manuscript to Chad in the Roselle Court. They had been seated by the oldest fountain called the Fountain Basin from 220 A.D. It had been laid in the terraced court in 1933 to mark the Nelson Museum Atkins opening. So much history to ground her, yet she felt completely alone and untethered. Okay, so that gives you a little bit of a bird's eye view of how you take research, how you weave that into the text so that you can start putting a story together using real elements from the environment. Obviously, these are setting elements, but they very much inform the mindset of the character who's doing the speaking. So I hope this was helpful. Thank you, Emily, for the question. If you enjoyed this, let me know. I think showing you exactly what these things look like in practice and how things come together might be helpful for those of you that are interested in research writing. So please drop me a comment and let me know if this was helpful and if you would like to see more. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I will see you in the next video where we talk about primary and secondary resources. See you later.